Holy cow, 2.2 million jobs in a month. Is the recovery on its way? You know, it's kind of hard to describe the kind of year we're having in 2020. It's sort of like Jekkyl and Hyde. One day the world is on fire and burning down around your ears. The next, the sky is blue, the birds are singing, and you found a $100 bill in your pocket. The roller coaster ride that is 2020 is once again on the upswing, as the May jobs report just came out and literally blew the socks off of anybody that was waiting for it. Well, not literally blew their socks off, figuratively, literally blew their socks off. Anyway, the numbers were so explosive, blowing said socks off, and nobody, I mean nobody, predicted that it would be this crazy. The question is though, what does it all mean? Is it just a fluke, a sign of things to come, or a harbinger of danger? We're going to explore all of that in this video, so be sure to pound that like button for the YouTube algorithm and hit the subscribe and notification bells so you get more great content coming your way. So how did we get here? When the clock strikes midnight on December 31st, 2020, we'll all look back in awe and wonderment at the year that was. And I hope you folks are buckled in because we are barely through the first half of it and we're getting ready to kick off the third quarter in a couple of weeks, in July. In a previous video on my channel, like and subscribe, I argued that the stock market was in fact in recovery mode. And you likely already missed the bottom if you sold off and were waiting for another collapse or shoe to drop, as it were. In that video, there were some major questions about the post-corona economy, what some are calling the new normal, quote unquote, and how it will affect people's buying habits and the trends for the economy in general. I'd say one of the big questions is, with the length of the quarantine and the shutdowns that have been going on, even with the extra stimulus, would businesses be able to survive not getting any cash flow for that length of time? A lot of businesses, particularly small businesses, survive on relatively thin margins as it is. And typically they have little, very little, spare cash put away to make it until the economy opened back up again. Add to that the riots and looting sparked by the unjust death of an unarmed black man, George Floyd, by a white police officer. And you have a recipe for economic malaise served with a side of inflation. However, slowly yet surely, state by state, with social distancing in place, economies have begun to open up and let their business people do what they do, i.e. conduct their business. Throughout this time, the stock market was slowly yet surely rising, frustrating all of the people who wished they didn't sell when the market hit its bottom. Pro tip, and you've probably heard this many times by now, but don't time the market. That is, unless you're a stone cold pro. And by that I mean in the top 1% of mathematical and analytical skill with the reaction time of a cat. Because those are the only people that make any money by timing the market. To do well in stocks and just about any other investment, what you need to do is you need to do your research. You have to buy into instruments that you have confidence in. For example, I own ETFs and mutual funds and a small amount of stocks. And if you are right, and if your research proves fruitful, you will make money. With that in mind, you need to set benchmarks for performance and never deviate from your plan. I probably should do a whole video on that. If you'd like to see something about that, comment down below. But I digress. The rising stock market was a curiosity to some, if not most, market analysts. A question that I'm sure they had, as did I. What is with the optimism in the stock market all of a sudden? Can't you see all the bad news on TV? Particularly unemployment and GDP figures. I mean, for an example, let's think about the weekly unemployment claims. 2 million one week, 3 million the next, 7 million another week, and before you know it, you have 40 million plus people making unemployment insurance claims. And that's just really an astronomical number. Economists were predicting 25% unemployment by June because of all the shutdowns and quarantines, and the effect that they were going to have on businesses across the country. Those numbers and more were inspiring the deepest thinking economists and market analysts to think that the job numbers for this May's job report would be in the millions of net jobs lost. But then came the May jobs report. You know, a wise man once said, that's why they play the games. But like I was mentioning, many economists were predicting that this jobs report was going to be anywhere from 2 million to 5 million jobs lost during the month of May. But in fact, it was just the opposite, with a staggering 2.2 million jobs added. Yep, that is a positive number of jobs, and the largest jobs increase in a single month recorded in the history of the United States. It might actually be the largest in the entire world, now that I think about it. And the reason that I think that is because China and the US are the only countries that have the population sizes to pull off a job report number like that. And I don't recall hearing any numbers like that out of China. But just for the sake of accuracy, let's just say that it was the largest jobs report number for the US for a single month. If we can for a second take a look at what is in the actual release by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I mean, so often we kind of just hear what the data is on CNBC or MSNBC, and we don't really take into account where the data actually comes from. Not today. We're going right to the horse's mouth, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The report reads, and I quote, "Total non-farm payroll employment rose by 2.5 million in May, and the unemployment rate declined to 13.3%. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today." That is Friday, June the 5th. These improvements in the labor market reflected a limited resumption of economic activity that had been curtailed in March and April due to the coronavirus pandemic, as well as the efforts to contain it. In May, employment rose sharply in leisure and hospitality, construction, education, and health services, as well as retail trade. By contrast, employment in government continued to decline sharply. This news release presents statistics from 2 monthly surveys. The Household Survey measures labor force status, including unemployment by demographic characteristics. The Establishment Survey measures non-farm employment, hours, and earnings by industry. And it goes on to talk about the individual surveys that it went over. In the Household Survey data, for example, they listed the unemployment rate, which declined by 1.4% to 13.3 percentage points in May. It also listed the number of unemployed persons, and they fell by 2.1 million to 21 million. In addition to that, the unemployed persons who were on temporary layoffs decreased by 2.7 million in May to 15.3 million, following a sharp increase of 16.2 million in April. Among those not on temporary layoff, the number of permanent job losers continued to rise, increasing by 295,000 in May to 2.3 million. The Household Survey then went into the industries that saw increases in employment. As an example, large increases occurred in May in leisure and hospitality, construction, education, and health services, as well as retail trade. Government employment continued to decline sharply. Giving the statistics for each industry, leisure and hospitality increased by 1.2 million, following losses of 7.5 million in April. That's a ton of job losses. Over the month, employment in food services and drinking places rose by 1.4 million, accounting for about half of the gain in total non-farm employment. May's gain in food services and drinking places followed steep declines in April and March, 6.1 million combined. In contrast, employment in the accommodation industry fell in May, minus 148,000, and has declined by 1.1 million since February. Construction employment increased by 464,000 in May, gaining back almost half of April's decline. April's decline was 995,000. Much of the gains occurred in specialty trade contractors, 325,000, with growth equally split between residential and non-residential sectors. Job gains of about 105,000 occurred in construction of buildings, largely residential buildings, such as houses and things of that nature. Employment increased by 424,000 in education and health services in May, after a decrease of 2.6 million in April. Healthcare employment increased by 312,000 over the month. Elsewhere in healthcare, job losses continued in nursing and residential care facilities and hospitals. Employment increased in the social assistance industry, reflecting increases in child daycare services and individual and family services. Employment in private education rose by 33,000 over the month. In May, employment in retail trade rose by 368,000 after a loss of 2.3 million in April. Over the month, job gains occurred in clothing and clothing accessory stores, 95,000, automobile dealers, 85,000, and general merchandising stores, 84,000. By contrast, job losses continued in electronics and appliance stores, 95,000, and auto parts and tire stores, 36,000. That's reflecting a trend in the general economy where brick and mortar retail is just flat dying out. It also listed employment increases in other service industries in May, 272,000, following a decline of 1.3 million in April. About 2/3 of the May increases occurred in personal and laundry services. In May, manufacturing employment rose by 225,000, with gains about evenly split between the durable and non-durable goods components. In April, manufacturing employment declined by 1.3 million, with about 2/3 of the loss occurring in the durable goods component. Within durable goods, employment gains in May were led by motor vehicles and parts, 28,000, fabricated metal products, 25,000, and machinery, 23,000. Within non-durable goods, job gains occurred in plastics and rubber products, 30,000, And food manufacturing, 25,000. Professional and business services added 127,000 jobs in May, after shedding 2.2 million jobs in April. Yikes, that was bloodletting. Over the month, employment rose in services to buildings and dwellings, 68,000, and temporary help services, 39,000, while employment declined in management of companies and enterprises, 22,000. So that's a lot of statistics. And one would think this is all good news. And yeah, mostly it is. The question becomes, can we sustain a pace where we can get back to where we were before all the lockdowns occurred? Now, a lot of people say no to that. And frankly, I agree with them to a large degree, but not totally. Here's why. Number one, the habits of consumers are going to be changing. Even in restaurants that have opened, less customers are frequenting them, mostly because their capacity is artificially limited due to social distancing orders still in place in many states. Two, another thing to keep in mind, industries that were chugging along or on life support are probably going to be killed off for good. An example that we talked about a little bit earlier is brick and mortar retail. Brick and mortar retail has been sliding into the abyss for a long time now. I talk and teach people about creating Shopify, Squarespace, and other types of online stores, so I kind of knew that already. But the stores that were hanging on or maybe even doing well pre-corona have just been devastated by this outbreak. And that trend is likely to continue until, frankly, brick and mortar retail is sort of a way of the past. Number three, building off of the decline of brick and mortar retail, along with the rising trend of working from home, the impact on the prices of commercial real estate, particularly strip malls, malls in general, and of course office parks, complexes, and the like, are going to be hammered by this coronavirus, affecting construction and other jobs that support all of that. And also, although hospitality and leisure saw a rise in employment during this time, it likely will not reach the highs that it hit before the virus clamped down on travel until such a time as governors open up their communities more fully and allow for more business and leisure activities, particularly on beaches and other venues. That said, it's a great overall employment report, and hopefully one that we followed up on in future months with better and better numbers. Speaking of better and better numbers, we're experiencing more and more subscribers joining us in our journey to speak and teach on how business and technology, as well as personal finance, can power humanity into the future. Why don't you join us by pounding that like button, smacking the heck out of that subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, in addition to dropping us a comment on your thoughts on the May jobs report. Were you blown away? Were you suspecting a worse report? What is your favorite conspiracy theory on why the job report was so good? Leave us a comment down below, because we're all dying to know. And remember, a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal with a plan and no action is a wish list. Take action on your business and finances using the power of technology, and we'll catch you next time. Peace. Seriously, everybody be peaceful out there and stay safe.